Really big fans who is at Chautauqua Institution this week, Mark Russell.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Mark, he's almost 80 now.
Wow.
And he was here last year when you made fun of all the board members. I mean, that was such a hoot.
They told me that. I don't remember. I remember that I did, but I don't remember the specifics of it.
Yeah, you were on your back, and you decided to talk about, who runs this place. Like tonight, Skip to My Lou, it was very quick talking about that.
I vaguely remember when Lou introduced himself to me. I vaguely remembered Lou, but and I do. And then they told me about it was Mike, and George, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And then George was missing. Is that correct?
You're
yeah.
so
Okay.
right
Yeah. Sure. Well, when there's a stellar board like that, it's not the sort of thing you forget.
Wait! Don't tell me what it is. But how did Paula Poundstone get involved with this? The Peter Siegel.
In the most boring of ways. They called me up and asked me.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of it, which I'm sure they're delighted to hear me say. But this is, I don't know, over 10 years ago. And yeah, they sent me a tape, and I listened to it, and it sounded like fun. And I had a nanny at the time who said, "Oh yeah, you got to go do that," because he liked the show. So I went and checked it out. And at that time, they didn't have they weren't all together in one place. They did it. Everybody was in like a separate radio station, and we were all just hooked up via wire.
Right.
Sorry, I have SARS. So they, so not too long after I got on board, they had been doing some shows on the road where they would be sponsored by a local radio station to come in. And obviously, as soon as they were in front of an audience, the energy that generates for the show is very, very good. So then they found themselves a home in Chicago, which was the headquarters of the show anyways, but like I say, we didn't all have to go there back then. So now we are broadcast from the bottom of a bank in downtown Chicago.
How does it work? How in advance? When do you tape it?
We tape on Thursdays, and we really don't know anything in advance, other than it's based on the week's news. So if someone were smart and clever and had a lot of energy, they could study the week's news and make jokes about it. I do not fall into the smart, clever, and has a lot of energy category, and therefore I really just go. I mean, I kind of study some newspapers on my way on the plane until I fall asleep, and then that's and I'm a morning edition listener, anyways, just for my own edification, and so and I watch McNeil Lehrer whenever I can, which isn't very often anymore because they took it out of Los Angeles. Right. But so yeah, I mean, we're not given any. We're not told any of the questions ahead of time. The only thing we are told ahead of time is the subject of the bluff story. One person is chosen, obviously, to have the real story. They take the information and kind of make it their own a little bit, and it's a section called Bluff the Listener. And we each, and so the other two write stories that are on a similar theme, but totally made up. And it's my least favorite part because it requires a lot of work. But we're supposed to turn it in. They always write us these notes saying, if you could give it to us, in the morning or at this time or at that time. We all just ignore that. We turn it in like pretty much that night.
What do you turn in? I mean,
they want to know the story ahead of time, that the bluff story is going to be. That's the only thing that's done ahead of time. And wait, I take it back. And it's from this little game called Bluff the Listener. And then the other thing is, at the very end, they say, they ask us a question predicting something. Like they'll say, what, I don't know, what will they find in, Mitt Romney's top drawer or something, and then we would each say what our prediction was. And then Carl always goes, well, panel, we'll see if those things happen next week on, wait, don't tell me. Those are the only prepared things. Everything else is just, so for me it's great, because I work, I'm comfortable working off the top of my head. I have a terrible memory. The idea that I'm going to memorize something is just not going to happen. The harder I try, the worse it gets, by the way. And so for me, the difference between doing Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me and doing almost any other show I've ever done is that there they encourage me to do it the way that it's natural to me to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas anything else I've ever been on, they're like, okay, don't do the thing that you do, but come do this thing instead. And that's, so I feel like a batter in a batting cage. I just delighted to get lobbed topics and, you know, try to get a little piece of them.
Peter Siegel, is he extemporaneous, or does he really?
Peter has a script. He also goes off the script according to what we're saying. But Peter does have a script. Now they've gotten him a little bit of help in terms of writing. Now I think there's the production staff is up to like 3. But Peter used to write almost the entire thing, I think. And he's very, very funny. So, you know, there's some backbone there to what's going on, even if we come up flat, which has certainly happened.
Do you find that, well, let me segue off of that just a little bit. This Comedy Hall of Fame is a subject which is the Lucille Ball Festival. And if they came to Paula Poundstone and said, Paula, we want this initial class, like Cooperstown, we're the 5 funniest folks, and we're going to induct them here in the Comedy Hall of Fame, who might be your 5 suggestions?
I'll tell you something. I would be so glad if they never asked me that. Because I really don't know. I'd have to have like the whole list of everybody who's possible in front of me to even think about it. There are lots and lots of really, really funny people, is the honest truth. And some of them, you know, from a long time ago, my kids and I love, and it depends what kind of comedy you're talking about too. Are you talking about stand-up comedy? Are you talking about, you know, comedic acting? You know, is it, or like Bob and Ray? Bob and Ray are like my favorites, or right up there anyways. I don't know I have a favorite, but certainly right up there. They just repackaged some of this stuff they did a long time ago, and I bought a CD of it around Christmas, and I was playing it for my kids one day, and I thought I was going to drive off the road. I was laughing so hard over the one where the guy collects the strange-shaped vegetables. Oh, my heavens. Just too funny.
When you have a spare moment and you're cruising along, and if you had any CD of any comedian to sort of listen to, who would you pick? I don't know. When I moved out of my parents' house, I stole their Bill Cosby albums. Then when my kids came along and got sort of old enough that they would understand the jokes, I came to a place in my life where I accepted that I might never get my turntable fixed. And so I went out. Funny, you know, we're really communicating because I understand everything you're saying.
Yeah. It's a difficult passage when you realize that. It's a hard thing to accept. There's a lot of, it was very spiritual. So I did get a couple of CDs of Bill Cosby, and I'll tell you, the stuff holds up so brilliantly well. And, you know, I would say the same thing of him. I don't think there's anybody who's better. There may be some who are comparable, but I don't think it gets better than that, you know. There was stuff that my kids would laugh at, and that's one of the things I love about Lucy, too. I raise my kids, I don't allow them to watch television. In recent years, they've cheated here and there. But for most of their lives, they were never allowed to watch TV. I just didn't want them seeing commercials, mostly. And also, even though there's 100 channels, we all know there's nothing on. And when you flip around looking for something halfway decent, the dreck that you pass, I find, is destructive. And so I never did. But I've had I Love Lucy's on video and then subsequently DVD. And so I would show, it wasn't like a holier than thou thing. We could watch on non-school nights. I would allow them to watch, you know, DVDs or videos. Yeah. So I turned my daughter Allie in particular onto the I Love Lucy's. And still now, if she were to pick, you know, if it was her turn to pick, she would say, "Can we watch an I Love Lucy?" We watched them over and over and over and over and over again, and and they're never bad. They're always good. Doesn't, even though I've seen them 100 times, you know? It's great stuff.
Well, you're great stuff, and I'm not saying that because I'm blowing up with your glory gun, but sort of like Bill Cosby, you come out, I'm sure there's some things in your minds which you kind of know that if it isn't flowing, it's good that you're going to say it's a crutch, but it's there, it's in the bag. When I see Bill Cosby coming out, he does a Chautauqua, frankly, a chair, his temple sweatshirt, and seemingly just goes for 2 hours.
Well, he's got, you know, you think about it, he had 11 albums that I know of, and probably some subsequent. I mean, he must have, you know, an unending barrel of, you know, of stuff he could do, you know. He's somebody, by the way, that I've never met. Our paths, he'll have been at a venue that I was coming to or something like that. Usually he's in the bigger halls than I am. But I hope someday I get to. I also think, by the way, for him, he was, I think, he was the first black man that I was really conscious of sort of knowing. You know what I mean? And so he really was an ambassador in a lot of ways. I mean, I was born in '59, so I think that the place that he holds, sort of in our culture, is really, really important, and in kind of in a really unconscious way. I mean, I didn't think about that until I was an adult, and then I went, oh wow, you know what? Boy, that really made a big, you know, made a big difference, I think, especially having, you know, grown up during some of the more tumultuous times of you know, racial argument. So he holds a really dear place in my heart.
You clearly come across as so much improv and in the moment, and that's what makes you such a stellar performer. Do you find when you have to watch Comedy Central and they have those sort of comedy laugh-offs and it's sort of staged, if you will, it's almost like studio wrestling, does that offend you?
I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've never seen it. I don't watch a lot of stand-up anymore. A, because it's kind of a busman's holiday. B, I mean, you know, I have this feeling all the time of, well, you know, well, why didn't I think of that? And it's not, you know, it just doesn't lift me up necessarily. I like to watch, I watch a lot of older stuff, I guess. Like my kids and I love Abbott and Costello. Just love them. There's, you know, I say naturally 100 times a day, because I can never even tell which guy it was. Was it Abbott or Costello? I don't know, one of them. Let me think a minute. Bud Abbott is the guy who used to say that. Naturally. It's just such great stuff. And the same thing in that I can watch it over and over again and see stuff that I didn't see before. Same thing with the Three Stooges, which, you know, a lot of people think that they're, you know, a poor man's Marx Brothers, and I say, well, I'm broke.
I spent my college days watching an awful lot of that stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. Do you find that as you're traveling around, is there a time when you feel like you're running out of gas, not only physically as you might be tonight, but just the idea-wise? I mean, is it, and how do you kind of?
I live in fear of that, actually. Because it's really important to me to generate more and more stuff, and not to, you know, and not to run dry. I don't want people to come, like, it was really important to me, for example, that I knew a lot of people that came tonight had come last year, and I really don't want them to see the same show. Even though, I mean, I enjoy hearing somebody do something that I enjoyed the first time, but I don't want to be stagnant water as a performer. I want to be like Charlie, like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where the chocolate churns, the river churns the chocolate. And part of that happens because I talk to the crowd. So it's never going to be exactly the same. And part of it happens because my act is based on the autobiographical stuff, and also I try to pay attention to the news. And so there's a sort of natural folding in of some new stuff, but I do live in fear of just sort of running dry. I'll tell you what really kills you is the goofy Twitter thing. Yeah. You know, there are days I'm like, you know what? I don't know what else to say. Yeah, and yet I'm a fairly prolific tweeter.
Yeah. Mark Russell I interviewed him yesterday, and Mark was, he's very current. I mean, he's the guy that reads the news.
Yeah.
He's right here, right now, and he's politics, and he said, my shelf life of my information is about as long as a cottage cheese. You know, it's just there, it's in now. You're either going to get the joke or not, but you're not going to pull that joke up a year from now.
Yeah, that is rough.
Whale will come and gone.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even now you think about Michelle Bachmann, who a couple months ago, they thought it was really important that we knew who she was. She was on the cover of Newsweek, and now, like, who? You know, so that guy must just be in a sweat his whole life. Mark Russell.
Yeah, that's right. What's next for you? Where do you go from here?
I'm going to Rochester in the morning, and then I go to Albany after that, and then I go home.
Do the kids mind you using them as props?
Don't tell them. My kids. I don't know. I wrestle with that sometimes. Sometimes I think that, I don't know. One thing I've told them, and I've told them this because it's true, which is people wouldn't laugh if these were wildly foreign ideas to them. They would just think that we were, I was describing a freakish family. Laughter wouldn't be the response. I think that, like even tonight, I did like a little meet and greet after the show, and a number of people came up to me and said, oh, my son is 23 and he has ADD, or, oh my gosh, our daughter who's 7 sounds just like your son. I think part of the reason that comedy is valuable is that shared experience thing that makes us feel less freakish, less alone. Right. It's really, really important. And so, I hope I'm not hanging my kids out to dry by sharing some of our personal life. But I really do think that we're not as unique as we might like to think that we are. And that there's a great feeling of community and support and sort of shared experience and telling those stories in a funny way. And a lot of times, when people talk about their families, it's with such reverence that it just makes me feel horrible most of the time. People are like, our son's becoming a doctor. And no one ever says, our son's becoming a doctor, which is good because he's driving me crazy. I like to be a little bit more real.
If you were asked to do a sitcom, would you do it?
A, I won't be asked, but B, not right.
Why wouldn't you be asked?
I just, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But also, I wouldn't do it right now. I wouldn't do it right now. I'm hoping that when I get my family, raised and self-supporting, that there is a terrific, role waiting for me, and I would love to be a comic actress. But that television schedule is, even though I'm in and out the way I work now, my kids are used to it because it's just how we've always lived. I generally am only gone, usually I'm gone Friday, Saturday. Some weekends not at all, and then some weekends maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But I leave it that way on purpose. I really didn't adopt kids so that someone else could raise them. Right. And so I feel like my allegiance is there, and I won't have the job of raising them forever, and so that other stuff can wait. And but like a sitcom schedule is grueling. It really takes a lot of time, and my kids need me.
You talk about Twitter and that stuff. Is there certain comics that you Twitter with and share comments with?
A little bit. Ed Begley and I a little bit. Occasionally, somebody will jump on that I know, but mostly it's mostly fans that I go back and forth with. Somebody tweeted me yesterday, I think it was, and they said, I wish Paula Poundstone would direct message me or something, and so I wrote to that guy, and then I don't know, somebody else jumped on the same thing, and then I wrote to that guy, and he wrote back and he said, "This was the best thing that's happened to me in my life," or something like that. And I wrote back and I said, "Well, I hope things get better." See, even to the first guy I wrote, he said, "I wish Paula would direct message me," and I wrote back, I said, "Don't waste your wishes like that." If you get one wish, I don't think that should be it. It's a fun thing to fool around with. I'm enjoying it. I try to keep a nice balance there. It actually has helped me generate material because I think about it more than I used to think about it. Now that you have that sort of, that shark that you're feeding every day. And a lot of stuff I would put on Twitter wouldn't necessarily go over on stage. They're slightly different venues, but at least it gets the juices flowing.
Back to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, because I think that's the greatest radio program on. Some of the cast members, talk to me about those individuals. Like Roxanne Roberts, I know her in a different world, but what's she like?
She's great. They're all very nice and very fun to work with. And, one of the things that's really fun about that show is no one feels real propriety, that I know of anyways, over the material or the things that come up, or, once one person has an idea, we all pretty much jump on. And so, one person will say a line, another person will add on, another person will add on. And that's the way we want it to be. Nobody feels, again, that I know of, too much propriety over that. And so she's great. She plays to win. She's very serious.
So do you, by the way. You won a few in a row here.
I'm on an unprecedented Poundstone winning streak, and I live in fear now as the stakes get higher of being on the show with Roxanne, because if I am on with her, I will lose. Yeah, because she cheats.
I'm following you. I noticed. You're on a roll.
Yeah, and for years I was every time I got a chance to speak about the show, I used that opportunity to clear up that misconception by telling people, yes, I'm trying to win. Because many people seem to have believed for years that I was purposely throwing the match, which was never true.
What about Carl Cat? He's got such a great voice, but I don't think I've ever seen a picture of him. How would you describe him?
Well, at this point in his life, he's a little bit grandfatherly, I think, because he's a grandfather. He's a very sweet, nice guy. Yeah. From North Carolina. He's
tall, small?
He's very tall. He's quite fit. He and his wife travel a good deal and do all sorts of stuff still. He doesn't seem to have, very much. When he tells me that, really? Also, we'll be in a location, and he'll say, like, for example, we were in Alaska last year, and so, well, his wife and he said, well, we're staying on for, and then we're climbing Mount blah, 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 and doing this and doing that. I'm like, oh, really? I'm flying home. He's great. He's a very nice guy.
How do they decide the mix? I mean, it's 3 celebrities, plus Carl, plus Peter.
Yeah, I don't know. I end up on, there must be some rhyme and reason to it, because I end up on about once a month. I don't know how frequently the other people, rotate. If there's somebody who's on a lot more than that, I really have no idea. I wish they'd put me on more frequently, but they won't.
Really? I mean, so there's a pool of you folks?
I think it's about 15 of us, maybe. Really? Something like that. Yeah. Maybe more, maybe less. But all really nice. I love being on with Adam Felber. There are nights where I thought they were going to have to take us out and shoot us. We got laughing so hard. There are nights where we were going to be separated. And you wear a headset, and they'll talk to you sometimes, not very often, but they'll talk to you in the headset. And there have been nights where they're like, okay, you guys cut it out now. All right, you guys stop it now. And we just got laughing so hard, we just couldn't.
Yeah.
He's great. And I love being on with Roy Blunt, who's a Southern gentleman. I believe he was on the first night that I ever won, and I'm pretty sure he threw the match, actually. Well, in fact, for that matter, I won at Carnegie Hall one night, and I was on with Mo and Adam, and I'm pretty sure they threw the match that night too. So, I think there for a while, perhaps I was one of the more pathetic players of the game. But now I learned, just say marmoset monkeys in their pants to anything, and you might well be correct. That's sort of my default answer now. It says, marmoset monkeys in their pants? Yes!
Yes.
The gong, yes, for 20.
Well, I was listening the other day, and whoever was on, you were on, and there was a female voice, and somehow she only got about 3 questions, and they hit the gong. I mean, as if they were just moving the project along, or moving the program along. And then normally you get your normal questions, and then the final funny question that nobody knows the answer to, a gong.
Yeah, but they shorted somebody?
She shorted like 3 questions.
Yeah.
Wonder if she knows, because I'm sure it was in the editing, somehow it just...
Probably, yeah, probably. Well, you do get a different show when you go to the live show. I don't know if it's better or worse, but you do get a slightly different show when you go to the taping.
How long does it normally go? How long does 2 hours?
We tape for about 2 hours, yeah, and I think the show is an hour maybe. Yeah. So that's a lot of stuff left out. You are an amazing individual, and I don't know if she talked about it a little bit earlier, but did you? Was this a natural for you? I mean, were you the class clown? Were you the cut up? The first sentence of the last paragraph of the summary letter written by Mrs. Bump, who was my kindergarten teacher, in May of 1965, she wrote, "I have enjoyed many of Paula's humorous comments about our activities." And I credit Mrs. Bump with kindly recognizing it was neat to have an adult like something that I did. And by the way, in the first grade, Miss Carter said that I was subject to emotional outbursts and that I needed tutored in handwriting. So it wasn't all easy. My genius wasn't always recognized, I feel. I like the sound of laughter. I like that response. And so I think to some degree I sort of naturally gravitated. Well, on the other hand, it was really a time and place thing in that I happened to live in Boston. Even though I'd always wanted to be a comic performer, and maybe I would have been a different kind had I not been in Boston when I was 19 years old and the sort of renaissance of stand-up comedy was taking place. Maybe I would have come into comedy in a different way and wouldn't have been a stand-up. I don't know. There's got to be nights when you just felt like you just bombed terribly. Many, sadly. Can you laugh about it now? Some. It's a pretty terrible feeling. I did do Farm Aid a number of years ago, 30,000 people at the Superdome in New Orleans, and I went on after Chris Christopherson and before Neil Young. And the crowd, it was a 6-hour show. People, were drinking from beer kegs for the whole 6 hours, and I went on towards the end. So it was a group that, were you to be a country western singer, you could easily do well to. Not so much as a comic. So I went on. It was just hideous. It was awful. It was horrible. People just shouting and yelling, and people yelling because Neil Young was coming on after me, and so people kept yelling, "Neil, Neil!" And I know that a lot of those people didn't like me and wanted Neil Young to come on, but I will tell you, at least half of them were so messed up that they believed I was Neil Young. Very hard to do. This is great. Hey, I've taken up a lot of your time tonight. This is great, Paula. Oh, well, thank you very much. It was nice talking with you.